Welcome to Cinema Bites, your go-to for movie recaps in a flash. Big twists, epic moments, all in just minutes. The film starts at a gas station with a young blonde woman who gets upset when she discovers that her period has started. She decides to go to the bathroom, and suddenly she glimpses the shadow of someone else coming toward her, stopping right in front of her stall door. Seconds later, filthy hands with long nails appear over the door, and the blonde girl starts screaming at the top of her lungs when a head appears. She finds herself face to face with a vampire. Her scent in this situation attracts him, so he rips off the stall door and attacks her right then and there. After this scene, we meet a mechanic named Hamid. It's the day he gets fired from his job. The workshop owner, Dudley, insists it's nothing personal, just budget cuts due to circumstances. But of course, this doesn't calm the frustrated employee. Hamid demands every penny owed to him, and from the workshop he heads straight to their usual bar. There, he finds his friend Nick flirting with two girls, Jess and Katie. As soon as one of them starts showing interest in Hamid, his friend Jude suddenly appears in the middle of them like a jack-in-the-box and pulls Hamid away from the girls. She works as a waitress in the same bar and is not happy at all when she hears that Hamid lost his job, especially since her own tips are already low. At that moment, another guy named John walks in. He acts gentlemanly and is charming with the girls, which really annoys Nick because of his boldness. Hamid steps in to back up his friend, and it ends up causing trouble between Jude and Eddie, her manager at the bar. Eddie gets angry about the commotion, and Jude smashes a bottle over Eddie's head, fully aware that this means she's fired too. In the parking lot, Nick tries to comfort both Hamid and Jude, who are now both unemployed, but his advice doesn't help. With no money to pay the rent, Hamid and Jude are forced to quickly pack their bags to escape their landlord, who is about to break down their door. After leaving the bar with Jess and Katie, John stops to refuel his car on the way home and gets frustrated by the delay because Dudley, Hamid's former boss, has stopped service to check the lights in his own workshop. The girls take advantage of the stop to use the bathroom, and John jokes that they left him alone. Suddenly, a vampire appears at his car window. At the same time, inside the workshop, what seemed to be a lost little girl reveals herself to be a monster and attacks Dudley. Meanwhile, Hamid and Jude have reached a remote area and start feeling regret. Hamid tries to reassure her, saying there must be work somewhere, even suggesting they get married. Jude gets even more upset hearing this. She's tired of his irresponsibility and recklessness. She also points out that for hours they've seen nothing but trees, and suspects Hamid doesn't even know where he's taking them. At that very moment, Hamid slams on the brakes and we hear a loud thud. Soon after, the police arrive at Dudley's workshop. The coroner examines his body and says he probably died about an hour ago. The officer is puzzled by the complete lack of blood at the scene and the fact that nothing was stolen, not even the food, which is still there. This almost completely rules out the possibility of an animal attack, but there aren't many other explanations. Away from all this commotion, Mel and Gail decide to go camping in the nearby woods. Gail waits inside the tent, and Mel steps out the campfire. Suddenly, he finds himself face to face with a vampire. Gail soon starts to wonder why Mel is taking so long and calls out his name, asking what's going on. Seconds later, Mel falls backward into the tent, blood gushing from his neck. Gail collapses and cries desperately. We return to Hamid, who regains consciousness in the car and panics as he remembers the accident. He checks on Jude, who also wakes up and asks what happened, but Hamid can't explain. All he can say is that something hit them. They both get out to see what happened, and things get serious when they find blood on the car's bumper and a piece of cloth. There's also a sign on the ground that reads, Madison Caravan Farm. Jude points out that there are indeed some caravans parked up ahead. They think they might have hit someone from there, so they decide to approach to find out what's going on. But the place looks very strange, with nothing but a few cars parked in a circle on the farm. Hamid knocks on the door of one of them, but no one answers, even though it seems like someone is watching them from the window of another house. They're about to leave when suddenly a man appears from behind one of the caravans, armed with a rifle, shouting at them to leave immediately. Jude explains the situation, and Hamid tells him the whole story, saying he's looking for work. After a few questions, the man calms down a bit and says his name is Crawford. He says the caravan park needs a maintenance worker, and he's willing to give them a chance. He tells them to think it over and then return to their car. Hamid comments that Crawford is a very strange man, but at the same time, they can't see how they could refuse a job in their situation, so they accept his offer and ask to be paid in cash. When Crawford talks about accommodation and food, Hamid says they can sleep anywhere if necessary, but Crawford interrupts, saying he can pay them with no problem, but living on site is absolutely necessary and non-negotiable. In fact, he doubts they'll even need money, since everything they'll need will be provided here. Without paying much attention to this last statement, the two agree to the job. Crawford takes them to the room where they'll be staying and explains that the caravan park is called Bogieville and is owned by Adel Madison. There's nothing that needs fixing there. All the work is on the farm itself. Hamid and Jude will have free time from dawn until sunset, but they are strictly forbidden from leaving the house after dark, and they can't receive any visitors at night. Also, the basement and attic must always remain locked. After agreeing to everything, Hamid talks to Jude about these crazy rules, and his anxiety grows with every strange word and sinister hint from the farmer. Crawford decides that Bogieville is outside the responsibilities of these two newcomers. He confirms that all the residents are now asleep and comfortable inside their caravans, and then the two of them find a charred skeleton in front of them. Crawford explains to them that this was a man named Terry. Hamid is terrified. His heart almost stops from the shock, and he loses his patience, shouting and wanting to know what is really happening in this place. Crawford tells him, "I'll show you. It's easier than explaining." And he goes to open the door of one of the caravans and introduces them to a resident named George, who lives with his mother. Hamid barely looks inside and then runs away when he sees a terrifying creature attacking him. He says he doesn't want to know what that was and that he's leaving immediately, but the farmer tells him that's impossible. He confesses that Bogieville is solidating vampires. Adele and Madison, who lives in the basement, are among them. The deal between them is that Crawford will guard them during the day, and Madison promised not to eat them. Hamid takes some time to process all this madness, and Crawford warns him that if he tries to escape, the vampire will smell him quickly and won't let anyone who knows their secret get away. After discovering all this, Hamid now faces a very difficult task, explaining the situation to Jude, who has already started to wonder about the noise coming from the attic. Then we learn that the person living upstairs is Lily, the girl who attacked Dudley, and she is Crawford's daughter. He tells her about the new guards and asks her to spend a few days in the basement with her Uncle Madison until they get used to the place. The girl wonders why they need to host new people, and here Crawford reveals that, unlike his daughter, he is aging normally, and after a while, he won't be able to keep guarding Bogieville. So it's time to train someone he trusts to one day take his place. When he finds Hamid and Jude in the hallway, he lies to them, saying he was scaring off animals in the parking lot and assures them again that the door will always remain locked. It's clear that Lily is the only secret he's not ready to share with the two of them yet. At night, Hamid wakes up in the middle of the night, goes to look out the window out of curiosity but doesn't see anything strange. He sneaks out of the room and looks at the attic door lock. Here, Crawford catches him red-handed, scolds him, tells the young man to go back to bed, and reminds him that he has to live by the rules or he won't live long at all. Meanwhile, Nick is leaving the bar with a woman named Betsy. Suddenly, Betsy gets scared and says she heard something. Nick doesn't care until she screams and points at his pickup truck, where they find a little girl sitting with her back to them. Nick tells the girl to get down, but she doesn't move. Betsy says maybe she doesn't speak English. Nick touches her shoulder and asks if she's okay. Suddenly, Lily turns her face and reveals her demonic nature to these new victims. Now, Sheriff Jim has a bunch of strange cases piling up on his desk and suspects that Dr. Carroll, the medical examiner, has a hunch she's not too excited to share. He's eager to solve the situation whatever it is, but as soon as she mentions vampires, Jim bursts out laughing and tells the doctor to stay away from the chloroform. Even now, though he doesn't believe it, he's a bit shaken when she tells him the grace period will get shorter every night and that these blood-drained bodies will keep appearing. Hamid and Jude also have their doubts and are uncomfortable. They decide to ignore Crawford's warnings and leave, but if his story turns out to be a lie, Hamid thinks it's better to know who the old man is keeping locked up inside. At that moment, the sheriff interrogates Eddie and discovers that a troublesome couple fled town the same night Dudley was attacked. He asks if Hamid has any friends who know where he is, and Eddie only remembers Nick, but explains that the boy was attacked by a bear in the bar's parking lot and is still in the hospital. Eddie, eager to help Hamid, also says that Dudley fired him hours before his death. Meanwhile, at the farm, Hamid suddenly grabs Crawford's rifle, even surprising Jude, and forces Crawford to show them what's in the basement. Jude almost throws up when the door opens and a rotten smell fills the house. They go down anyway and are terrified to find that everything Crawford said was true. Madison, a tall and strong vampire, lives below with his wife Tess. Now they also have Lily's cousin with them. Madison grabs each of these intruders by the neck and explains that they're not going anywhere because they've been sentenced to work in Bogieville. At the hospital, Nick says he was attacked by a dead girl. Carol starts arguing with Jim, who still insists on ignoring her theory as long as there's no more concrete evidence. We flash back and learn more about Crawford's life, who lost his wife Anna many years ago and had to take care of his blind daughter alone. Madison and Tess hosted him at the farm until one day, a vampire appeared in the barn. Madison was bitten while defending his wife, and the vampire ended up burned by sunlight. Crawford, not really understanding what had happened, left Tess and Lily with Madison for a moment, and when he came back, it was too late. That was 20 years ago, and since then, he's been trying to protect them while also controlling the destruction they cause in the area. Bogieville was actually just an ordinary caravan park, but the three vampires bit everyone there and turned the farm into a version of Transylvania. Hamid and Jude are affected by the story, but they don't give up on trying to escape, especially now that they know everything. Crawford interrupts their whispering to tell them that Madison is calling everyone outside. The two follow him, terrified by the sight of the vampire clan emerging from their dens. At the same moment, Madison presents the two living people and orders that no one ever eat them. But his orders are challenged by a vampire named Billy, which leads to Billy being expelled. After the meeting, Crawford explains that Madison and Billy have been enemies since they were alive, and now disagree on the best way to keep the secret. Madison's clan feeds only in nearby places, while Billy and his followers prefer to hunt farther away. The next day, Jim gathers all the evidence and informs the police that the town is under attack by vampires. After everyone stops laughing, he assures them he's serious, but asks them not to say anything to the civilians yet. At the same time, Nick is surprised by an unexpected visit from John, Jess, and Katie. The three are now vampires too, and John drags Nick out of bed, telling him to jump out the window. Hamid finds a vampire hiding under a car, begging him to end her suffering. He hesitates for a moment, then grabs her hand and pulls her body into the light, leaving her to turn to ash. This reignites his desire to escape once again, but now Jude is too scared to upset the monsters. He decides to go alone, and promises her that he'll return to her. He sneaks out quietly while Crawford is asleep. Towards the end of the day, Crawford finds a ring in the remains of the vampire that was under the car. He shakes his head and says, "This is not good at all." Madsen quickly notices that Hamid has disappeared. He gets very angry and orders them to bring Jude to him. At that time, Hamid tries to contact Nick and goes looking for him at the bar. There, Eddie tells him about all the attacks that happened. Hamid gets arrested as soon as he leaves, but the police run away when Madsen suddenly jumps onto the hood of the boxcar. He tells Hamid that Jude is with him and that he will turn her into a vampire if he doesn't get what he wants. Hamid swears he'll do as told, but he can't start the car after the vampire leaves, so he goes and steals a van from a drunk man sleeping in a chair. Before he returns, Bogieville tries to find Nick in the hospital and is terrified when he discovers he fell out the window. After that, dawn is about to break. Madsen attacks a traffic guard to feed Lily and warns her that she needs to eat quickly before the sun comes up. At the same time, Hamid returns to the farm and is greeted by Crawford's gunfire. Crawford insists on bursting all the car tires to make sure the young man doesn't escape again. Only then does he take him inside. Hamid says he wants to see Jude because of Madsen's threat, but Crawford refuses and tells him he'll only let him into the basement if he explains where he was and what exactly he did. Hamid swears he didn't tell the gang anything, but warns him that the secret is about to be exposed because some vampires are attacking many people indiscriminately. Crawford looks worried when Hamid mentions the police and also asks him about the vampire that was under the car. Hamid admits what he did and explains that she was the one who asked him to do it, but Crawford tells him never to do that again and reveals that this vampire was Billy's wife. After clarifying this point, he finally takes Hamid to the basement. There, Jude is sitting curled up, shaking with fear. The two hug each other. Madsen repeats that this is their last chance, so they better not waste it. Then everyone heads to the caravans. Crawford gives the ring to Billy and tells him sadly that his wife is gone and won't return. Billy starts yelling and accuses Crawford. Suddenly, he slashes the farmer's neck, who drops dead instantly. John appears too, and we see that he's one of Billy's disciples. He says he took care of Nick and offers to finish off Hamid as well, to please his master, but he immediately takes a bullet to the face. Jude says their chance to escape is now zero, because she spent too long in the basement, to the point that Madsen will be able to smell her anywhere on the planet. That's why she asks Hamid to escape by day again and call the sheriff to rescue her. After they bury Crawford, the two say goodbye, and Jude tells him she'll be safe because vampires can't attack the lone guard. When she sees their cars gone and the stolen van has a flat tire, she asks Hamid how he plans to get to the station. He tells her he found a car in the barn. Its keys are still in its owner's caravan, but Hamid is now used to the situation and goes straight in, warning that anyone who attacks him will get the sun in their face. As soon as he leaves, Madsen acts on his word and goes after Jude. Knowing there's no other human guarding the farm, she defends herself by opening a window, and the sun hits his face directly, but he manages to escape at the last moment. Hamid succeeds in alerting the sheriff, who immediately holds a meeting in the church and prepares the community for battle against the vampires. There are so many volunteers that, in addition to the boxcars, they use a school bus as well to transport people to Bogieville. Hamid explains that they must eliminate all the vampires because if even one escapes, It can hide and start the infection all over again. Now there's only 1 hour of daylight left when the forces arrive, but there's still enough sun to burn a few of the people in those run-down houses who are dragged out of their holes by force. Jude warns Hamid that Madsen is very angry down in the basement, and we see he's about to even give up his own family. Tess tries to remind him she's his wife, but he replies that's only until death parts them, so it doesn't matter anymore. As soon as he leaves the basement, she starts fighting with Lily, telling her it was all her fault. The girl, upset since her father died, pushes the woman into the sunlight at the first opportunity. After that, 2 officers go down to the basement and say it's empty, without seeing Lily hiding in a corner. Hamid, suspicious, decides to check for himself. Meanwhile, Carol and Jim take a few men to search the barn. The other group is ambushed by a few hidden vampires. Carol defends herself by chopping off Tom's head, who became one of them. The sheriff is pleased with her bravery. Both are shocked when one of the vampires comes back to life, but one of the deputies quickly finishes him off. Jim regrets bringing all these civilians to the battle and apologizes to Carol for doubting her. Jude starts celebrating victory and even tells Hamid they should steal the sheriff's car and run away together. But now he's responsible and decides to continue searching for Madsen. Otherwise, both of them will be condemned to sleep with fear for the rest of their lives. She tells him he's right and joins him in the hunt, but she doesn't make it. Madsen attacks her and drags her under a truck and bites her neck. Jim arrives with his partner, and Madsen shoots him out of the barn. Hamid tries to save his friend. Unfortunately, Madsen has escaped the area in his car. 3 months later, Jim visits Hamid in Bogieville, still surprised that he chose to live there. He asks if Jude is okay. Hamid dodges the question, because now he's the one guarding her during the day after she turned into a vampire, and that's the end of the movie. See you in a new summer.